Good afternoon, everyone. As you know, my name is Zenzi Sewa, and my guest today is Albert Bramanti. And as you know, with Spiritual Infinity, it is about people's spiritual journey, their connection to spirit, what caused them to have that connection, how they went through it, how they connected, and how they're using it in their present day life. And with my guest today, Albert, who is a psychologist, he also does NLP. And be interested to know he has a talent agency in New York. So, how does that affect him? So, without much ado, and Albert is in New Jersey, and as you know, I'm here in London, so the time difference. So, do I say? I think I say good morning to you, Albert. We're in London here
Yes.
this afternoon.
Well,
So,
look, good afternoon, Zenzi. I'm really happy to be here. And I want to thank you for inviting me onto your show. This has been, it's an honor. So to talk about, different things. So we were talking about before the recording about the importance of being a light worker now and
yes,
being spiritual. And I feel that, especially in today's age,
yeah,
there's a lot of that's needed, unfortunately. It is what it is. So I've always considered myself growing up a very spiritual person. I wasn't so much into the organized religious. I don't consider myself religious, but I consider myself spiritual.
yes,
So I don't necessarily, I had my own like set of beliefs in a sense.
yes,
So I don't necessarily prescribe to a belief. Now, my family, grew up in a Catholic household, non-traditional, but I still, I don't identify as a spiritual being.
yes,
So, and that looks differently for everybody. So from what I can tell you from me is I believe in a collective wisdom. I believe in a higher power.
yes.
Um, and I tune into that higher power because I also feel like that higher power is within all of us if we know to tap it and to access it, rather than relying on other sources to get us access to that power. I believe we have it
Yes,
internally. We just have to know how to use it and how to use
yes,
the tools.
yeah. And to believe that we have it. Yes, yes, very much so. Because as my saying is, we're spiritual beings with a physical body having a human experience. So we
Hmm.
are that energy, that spiritual force naturally.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's exactly what's happening. Is that we're there, we and I believe we also have a lot of wisdom outside of us that we don't even aware, most of us don't even aware we have,
Yeah,
because we're taught to not access that
yeah,
in a sense by society, by our parents, by
yes,
everyone else has really good intentions, I believe, really
yes,
strong intentions,
yeah.
but it could be misguided, attention, and can block us, and that's why I feel like a lot of people are not really have access to what they can do or the access to their gifts.
Well, this is part of the misconception. This is part of the lies. This is part of the conditioning which has been given worldwide to make us forget who we are and make us think that we're lesser than, and therefore we do not have these qualities and these gifts which are innate in all of us, and therefore we
Hmm.
don't believe we have that wisdom, we have that power, and that's been shut away purposely to keep us from being the beings that we naturally are.
Of course, it helps us being conditioned,
Yeah.
to society and to again to rely on other people.
Yes.
And this is why a lot of times, even as children, we dismiss them by saying, "Oh, stop having that wild imagination,"
Mhm.
and because we all know that children are probably the most spiritual beings
Yes.
on the planet because they just they're new and they're still connected,
Yeah.
and we might dismiss what we might think is their crazy wild imagination.
I was speaking to a guest previously and saying the same thing. When a child comes onto this earth plane, because they're so new from the other side, they carry a lot of their memories and things they say and things they do. We dismiss it as being woo-woo, but actually they're still remembering. And we don't become disconnected as such, but we think we're disconnected somehow. A disconnection from our way of thinking on that level blocks it out. And we in society, as time goes on, we condition them not in the way we're supposed to, and we're part of that blockage, creating that blockage within us.
Of course, and it's out of fear. Maybe we're not completely, wanting to admit it, or wanting to, because it may go against the narrative, it may go against the norm, and therefore it's easy to just say, okay, like, Johnny, stop being serious, stop being, be serious, and let's not talk about that right now at the dinner table. And so therefore, the child having a limited mind starts to realize, well, maybe I shouldn't be talking about this. And they start burying that, and then by the time they're an adult, they, don't really have access to those gifts anymore.
Yeah.
So, and that's what I really feel, that we have these gifts that we just need to access it more.
Yeah.
So whether it's by meditation, whether it's by prayer, if that's, what you believe, then that's what we need to be doing more of.
Yeah. So Albert, how did you come to connect to your spirituality?
Well, I came through, again, some mysterious things. I've always, every time I would go to, like, whether it be a medium or a psychic, I was always told that I'm so incredibly psychic and gifted.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, I really didn't necessarily believe it. But there were times in my life where I would sometimes say things, or come out with remarks that seemed random,
Mm-hmm.
but that hit people on profound. When I was 7, for instance, I went to my first funeral. It was a distant relative who had passed away.
Okay.
And, my parents were nervous about taking me up to a casket, open casket, how I would react. And I don't remember this happening, but I was told that I turned to my parents, I looked at, and I said, "Is this heaven?"
Okay.
And immediately the mourners in the front row stopped what they were doing to hear that. And they still to this day tell me how that comforted them.
Okay. Just
And
by making that remark.
it was an innocent remark. I remember saying it, and it probably came to me consciously as a random question.
Yeah. Okay.
And so that was like my first thing. Well, maybe, there's something here. And then when I was 14, my grandmother had died. And the day after her death, we were in the house kind of like going through stuff and, cleaning up the house. And I don't remember this happening, but I went into a drawer and pulled out her wedding ring and put it in my pocket. And when we came home, I was really upset because I was like, I thought I was going to get in trouble. I, took her wedding ring home. And I didn't realize that her and my mother were talking about her getting that wedding ring.
Oh, okay.
So what seemed like a random thing that I did. And then I have to wonder, was that my grandmother directing me?
To take
yeah, go home. Yeah. So it was questions like that made me, wonder that there's a little bit more than the logical, rational world of just nothingness after life. So, and so then, I grappled with issues because I went to school for psychology and, we were straight on science, which we kind of didn't really consider spirituality.
Yeah.
Because again, that was a woo-woo, not considered real to be talking about. So I kind of pushed that aside. And then, I had an experience when I was 30 where I think I met someone from else on this that I was connected to on a soul plane.
Somebody not of this world, but in this world.
Yes. Um, Someone who actually, in a weird twist of events, was leaving this world.
Okay.
You
So
know, and
describe that situation, please.
so when I like I said, I was 30, I was going for my PhD, and we had to do a residency
Mhm.
um in in a different state.
Okay.
So and so that was definitely an experience. So I connected with this woman in California, the other
Okay.
side of the country, who was
Yeah.
a bit older than I was, and she was going for education. I was going for psychology, and we were going to be at this conference, the mini conference, and so we just started connecting online. We were chatting for a long time about really nerdy material, like stuff that only like PhDs can talk about. It wasn't anything exciting.
Okay.
So I'm just saying that. So when we met, so then like after 2 weeks after chatting, we finally met in person because we were at this conference, in Minneapolis, and so when we ran into each other. It wasn't even like, "Hi, are you so and so?" It was like we just started chatting like we knew each other.
Okay.
And when I was chatting with her, I kept saying she has a presence in my head. She has a presence of an angel. And every time she smiled, it was like a very angelic smile. Like it was something that kind of helped me feel euphoric every
Okay.
time she smiled. So didn't I thought it was odd. I thought even at that time I thought it was just a little weird, a little weird. Um, and then the next day we all met up for dinner. As a group of us, and I'm not much for a picture take. It never really was. But for some strange reason, I turned to her at the end of the evening and said, "Can we take a picture together?"
Okay.
And I didn't think anything of it. I remember even going back to, the room afterwards thinking, this is crazy. Why would I think, why would I say that? What's
Yeah.
wrong with me? Sense. So, needless to say, the conference ended. We didn't really get to talk to each other that much. But what happened was we were texting each other when we were at the airport. We were on different sides of the airport because we were going to different parts of the country. And we had made plans to meet up. And then a couple of days later, we just started chatting for like a few days, like a week after I was coming back. We would chat every day. And at the end of every phone call, we would say, "I love you" to each
Okay.
other.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel weird. I actually felt it. I really felt I meant it. And she meant it too. And then um, one morning I woke up, I didn't get the normal text. And I'm thinking, okay, well, I was busy. She was busy. She was going to see her family. We'll just connect over the weekend. So the next day was the weekend now. I still didn't hear from her. I'm thinking, okay, she's just so busy. I'm not going to bother her. I'm going to go do my own thing. And then that night, I get an email from somebody who I don't recognize with the words, "Please call me now."
Yeah.
So I called her up and she asked me, when was the last time I spoke to, my friend? And I said, well, the other day. And she's like, well, how did she sound? I said, she sounds fine.
Yeah.
And I kind of asked, why are you asking me? She's like, well, and then she told me the news, she passed away yesterday.
Oh my gosh.
And I was shocked, like literally paralyzed. Like I couldn't say anything. My mouth was open. Nothing was coming out of my mouth. Like I was like that sleep, almost like that sleep paralysis mouth, where you can't move.
Yes.
So, and a woman, she's crying to me, and I'm just like, what happened? I did get what happened out. And then she said, she was just with her friend, with her family, and just passed out, and that was it. They couldn't revive her. And I didn't think I was just like really numb.
Okay.
And I woke up the next morning in having an immense grief reaction hysterical crying almost in the fetal position. And for months afterwards, anytime I would see her picture or just hear her name, I would just start getting emotional. On a conscious, rational level, I couldn't explain it because I only knew her chronologically under a month.
Okay.
On this, at least on this plane, I only knew her for a month. Why was I having such a strong reaction? And I've lost family and friends before. I've grieved, but not like this. I mean, this was intense. And a couple of weeks later, her friends reconnected with me, her family, children reconnected me, and said that their mom couldn't stop talking about me, and then I was number one on her contacts list.
Okay.
So still didn't think, I still couldn't really figure out why, what was going on. And as a matter of fact, I was going to the anger stage, like wanting to know why would you do this to me? Like, reintroduce me to someone so strong and then have her ripped away from me.
Yeah.
This is what I was thinking at the time, because again, I was thinking with my rational, scientific mind. A few months later, I get another email from a random, I think it was random, and said, "I just want to thank you." I said, "For what?" I made a tribute for her on a public grieving website. I said, "Yeah." She's like, "Well, I saw the thing and I reconnected with my family." That was her estranged sister,
Oh.
who happened to reconnect with the family after she saw my post.
After you wrote that post, her estranged sister from the family read it, and she through that
Reconnected.
reconnected.
Yeah. And that started to put the dots together.
Yeah.
And then I reframed it after my grieving was kind of complete, was this might not have been about me.
Yes. Might be
This
the estranged sister.
It might be about the estranged sister, and it might have been my way of helping my
Yes.
friend on her way out.
Out to reconnect with the sister, get the sister to reconnect with the family.
Yeah, and kind of wake me up in a sense to know that there's something advanced. But that's where I realized, like, okay, if this is somebody I think from the spiritual family, because if I had such an intense reaction,
Yes.
visceral grief reaction to this loss, that really didn't make sense. Well, at least from a rational standpoint, because I knew her less than a month.
Yeah. Now, I think it wasn't about you. You were the tool.
Yeah.
You were the connection to make this happen.
Exactly. And so that's where and that really woke me up, to a point where I'm like, okay, there's something beyond greater here. And so, and even like, I'll have a lot of other incidences where I'll say a remark or I'll make a compliment or say something to somebody, and they will tell me around, you don't know how much I need to hear that.
Yeah.
So it's statements like that where I can't say logically what's going on. I can't, but I can tell you it. Now, even to this day, I need to work on more is getting consciously more attuned so I can know when to say these things.
Yes.
Rather than just randomly happening. Because even last fall, I was at a conference, hypnosis conference on transpersonal hypnosis, and I was talking about this story and the idea of soul contracts. And I said a remark, and I don't remember what I said. And I looked at one of the people in the audience, and when she came up to me at the end, she goes, "You don't know how much I needed to hear what you just said when you looked at me." I don't even remember looking at her. I don't even remember what I said. But I do believe that was the direction I was getting.
Yeah.
I needed. So part of me is like, okay, how do I, now work on this so that I become more at least consciously attuned, and maybe I may not need to know the conscious reasons for this, reasons for these, or it's like, not only do I want to be consciously tuned, but maybe tuning myself to even more of the unconscious moments happen.
Yes. I think what it is because you have this effect on people, as you said, now you want to know how can you do more of that, because your spirit
Hmm.
can see how it helps, and you innately want to help more. And it's how to open up those channels and do things to connect with people, to help them more through their journey on this earth plane.
Right. Exactly. And that would be great to be able to help. And that's I believe my mission in a sense
Yeah.
is to help others. And I'd love to do more of that.
Okay. Now, you say you're a psychologist. I know it's
Hmm.
not say that you are a psychologist. You've also done NLP, um, and you have this talent agency. When you're in your field of psychology or NLP, how do you feel when you're working with somebody? Because it could be a case that you're actually using that spiritual connection when you're working with clients. How do you feel?
That could be very true because a lot of times I don't necessarily use a set technique, because a lot of times with NLP and psychology, if you really want to strip it down, it's like, okay, we use this technique and that technique. And I've always felt like while they're important to use and I do utilize them, I don't feel like it's a recipe. I feel like it's like, okay, I got to work with the person in front of me,
Yes,
not not necessarily go, rattle these techniques off, because
yeah,
otherwise that would be inauthentic. Because
yes,
obviously it's, what the person needs. Now that could be again going, using it as a vessel in a sense.
yes, yes. Because I find, I mean, I've done LP with Richard Bandler. Sorry, excuse me. And when you're saying psychology, they're one of the
Hmm.
same. Have you found
Yeah.
that? Yeah.
Yeah, well, what I found, and Richard Bandler is definitely a very interesting human being. Um, I haven't met him, but I see a lot of his videos, and I'm like, he's an interesting fellow. But I feel like even with my hypnosis and NLP, and I've gotten it trained after psychology, I feel like it's even a better way of explaining psychology, and even a better way of explaining behavior than I did. So I think I know more about psychology from my NLP training than I
Yes.
do from my traditional training.
Yes.
And you know, I definitely believe that psychology has its place, but I was starting to get disgruntled with the clinical training.
Yeah.
And the reason why I became disgruntled by it, I would have professors that were talking about their case studies, and they would say, I was working with this, patient with borderline personality disorder for like 8, 9 years. And I'm thinking to myself, 8 or 9 years in therapy and still no progress.
Exactly.
Something's missing.
Exactly.
Something is not adding up.
Up.
And that was like my whole reason why I became disillusioned with clinical psychology, because it was just, I
It
felt like
was.
it was more perpetuating the problem and not moving to a solution state, whatever that would look like.
Yeah. But in your journey to your spiritual connection, what have you done to try and deepen that and understand that, so that you can use it in your field of NLP or psychology?
Well, I think, connecting to a higher power,
Yeah.
higher self, doing some meditation. Again, whether that would look like prayer, or for some people, or just meditation
Hmm.
in a sense.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely. Because
yeah.
that's as I said, when I look at psychology, which I've studied, and when I look at NLP, which I studied under Richard Bandler, and I look at these forms, and when you are working with spirit,
Hmm.
when you start to look at life through the spiritual lens, and you start to study life through the spiritual lens, you then realize that meditation, your meditation, hypnotherapy,
which
so,
are, you know, so
so closely connected, really.
it's almost two sides of the same coin, you know, if you
Thank
think about
you.
it.
I'm so
Even
glad I've had
though
this discussion.
even though there are some snobs who are like, oh, it's not the same,
Yes,
like it is the same
yes,
thing.
yes.
It's just maybe framed a little differently, maybe guided a
Thank
little
you.
bit differently, but it's the
Thank you.
same principle. It's
Thank
the
you.
same principle. Whatever it is, you need to connect. Um, and I
Yes.
get a kick out when I have conversations with people like, I can't be hypnotized. I'll never be hypnotized. I was like, and then I'll ask, do you meditate every day? I'm like, mm-hmm.
Oh,
Okay. Right.
thank
Okay. You keep telling yourself that you can't be hypnotized. You know,
you. And you're doing it through meditation.
yeah, you're doing it daily. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
but I get a kick out of that.
Oh,
Another
yeah.
interesting story. When I was at one of the, like, New York City. We would sometimes have a New Life Expo, which was like a alternative health and, fair for 2 days. And
Yeah.
I once passed this bookshop, the vendor. That's books I was looking up, and he came up to me and goes, "What do you do?" I said, I do hypnosis. And he started like to get scared on his face. And he goes, "Well," and he was telling me like he was all into, the Bible and Christianity and how I needed to come back to Christianity and all that. And I was just listening to him. I wasn't paying, really. So he was telling me, that you got to get out of hypnosis, stop doing that. It's the devil's work. So I turned to him. I said, "So what do you recommend I do?" He said, "Pray." He said, "Pray." I said, "Okay. Can you walk me through pray?" He's like, "Yeah. Close your eyes, take a couple deep breaths in."
There you are.
And I started hysterical laughing. He goes, "What's so funny?" And I leaned over to him, and this is right before I walked away. I said, "That's hypnosis." And I walked away. Thank you. I'm like, and even sometimes when I work with clients who are Christian, or someone who is Christian, I might do that. If their personal guide is Jesus Christ, connect to Jesus Christ in
Yep.
trance.
Yep.
And therefore, like, I feel like this type of work can work with any religion or any
Yeah.
faith.
It's
So,
it's when you start to study it. I'm so glad I'm speaking to you. When you start to study it and you study um these these, these different anomalies, no, I should say anomalies. When you start to when you start to study these different genres, and then you go to the spiritual side and you do the meditation and you actually look at it and the way you will use it, it's like, hold on. And as you quite rightly say, somebody's in clinical psychology for 9 years and you're thinking, what?
yeah.
How? When you understand what it's all about and then you go through the spiritual, you have to, and this is why I say to people, you must, if you want to understand life, if you want to understand about yourself, you have to connect to spirit. You have to go back down to that line. And
Yes.
when you do, and you really study and you go and then you look at all these different factions, you can see how when you bring them together in the proper way, through spirit, through understanding who you are, and in that meditative state, you're
Hmm.
supposed to be able to change things, even us individually, once we understand it. It's
Yeah.
one of it's just two different sides of a coin, how you use it. And if you use it in the proper way, with the proper connection and the proper thought through connecting to spirit, and then asking for your understanding, asking spirit for the understanding. And this is where, when I'm working, it's like, what's with this person? Why? How? And then how do you, and then bring it through spirit, because everything is energy. It's all energy and waves, and
Yeah.
recorrecting that energy and reconnecting those waves, and then it should correct itself and come together.
Yeah, 100%. It's coming. It's all coming together,
Mm,
and just having access to that, and yeah, I mean, and just helping people through that.
yeah. And as I said, that the key is spirit, 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 and let spirit guide you.
Yes.
Albert, how do you use that in your in your way of your agency, your talent agency?
Well, I think just connecting with people. Sometimes I'll, even for an actor that I work with who I may not have been in contact with, in a few weeks, I'll sometimes reach out, hey, like a random thought, like reach out to this person, to the client.
Mhm,
And a lot of times I do, and it's like sometimes they'll say, well, they needed to really hear from me at the moment, or they were going through something.
mhm,
And I'm like, okay, well, I'm glad I did. But again, it's the same thing. Like I use intuition, and it's like, finding an actor for a role is like putting together like pieces of a puzzle, in a sense. Like for me, it's a puzzle. It's like, okay, let me try to find the right actor for the right role. And when I do make a sale or a push, it's a success.
mhm,
But I still think it really is all about connecting with people on a one-on-one basis.
mhm. And using that intuition, that higher instinct, to help bring everything together.
Yes.
Okay. So in your present time, you've gone through this, looking at your life and things you said and things that happened to you and how you've had an effect on people, studying the psychology and the NLP, having your agency and everything. How um, how do you see yourself going forward in developing that spiritually, or how can you deepen that, to get a greater connection?
How well to me we give it a deep connection. I think just talking to people,
Mm,
uh, and not just even like on a simple thing like talking shop, but even just talking about who they are fundamentally, and
mhm,
finding out who they are, and finding out exactly what makes them tick.
mhm. And what and how they think about themselves as well,
Yes, but
because
that's
that,
part of that too.
yeah, because that causes blockages within us. If you're trying to do something and they're thinking in something else, it's how to bring everything around to align it so that you can have that positive interaction and that positive result.
Yes.
Okay. So Albert, what would you say, if to give people guidance on their lives and in their spiritual connection, what to do, how would you then advise?
Well, I would say, work. Again, meet anybody where they're at.
Mhm,
What is their specific belief system? What is their, divination? What do they, what do they view their higher powers? And then connect to that
mhm,
higher power through,
mhm.
again, just sometimes sitting in silence and not expecting anything. Just sit inside. And sometimes nothing may come through,
Yeah,
and that's fine. That's even a message I feel it too. But just being still and trusting things. And also what I feel is like, go with the first thing that comes to you,
yeah.
because otherwise what then starts to happen, our conscious mind starts to like
Overthinking.
negotiate, overthink it, negotiate, and say this is not true. Dreams are also, I feel, very powerful too. um
Mhm.
Keep a dream journal by your bed. The moment you wake up, the first thing that comes to your mind, jot it down. Don't question it, just jot it down,
Yeah,
and then look at it later.
yeah,
um because again, when we even when we wake up, our conscious mind starts kicking in after the first minute or two of waking up, and then we dismiss it, or we
overthink.
overthink it, and then it's over. The message is out. So getting messages, I would have to advise, or need to advise, go with the first thing that comes to your mind. Even sometimes in a hypnotic trance, if we're going by like, what messages, the first thing, which I get quickly, first thing that comes to your mind.
Because it's uncorrupted, it's just coming from hopefully pure
Yeah,
source
yeah,
coming
it's
in.
it's pure spirit is not, in a sense, corrupted by the brain. If you think rational brain,
Yeah.
or watered down, it's just the first thing ever. And then, that's the message you should be paying attention to.
Yeah, I agree. It is, as you say, we can overthink it. The brain takes over. The subconscious mind that has some false narratives in there starts to now filter it through and says, no, that can't happen, or that can't, or you're afraid, or whatever. And that's nonsense because
Right.
you are not that information in there, because the information is there is acting on who you are at this lower level, not who you really are at the higher level. That comes from
That's
the super
correct.
and the
Yeah,
superconscious. The superconscious mind is where the truth really lies. The subconscious
yes.
mind is where what's happening on this earth plane and what you've done as this little person that you think you are. That's all. Yeah. Yeah.
And we can call that, some people call it superconscious, some people call it the higher self, and or connect to your higher self or inner guides, and
and it's that you need to connect to really get the truth of who you are, and that's who you connect, what you connect to really get the guidance of what you need to do, because from there you get what you are actually capable of achieving.
of course.
Not from the subconscious mind who says, oh, you're this little mouse and you've been acting like a little mouse, and because you've been acting like a mouse, that's the only thing you can achieve. And that's a false concept.
Exactly.
Albert, thank you so much.
Well, thank you again for inviting me.
No, not at all. It's been very interesting, especially the fact that we can see that psychology, NLP, hypnosis, meditation is like,
They're more similar than they claim to be different, and I will say that every day, that they are very similar. Just more so than everyone says they're different. They're more similar than anything.
Yes. When we go into studying and we are honest and we're not told they're different, and we think they're different because we're told they're different. When we look at them, you think no, and you're looking at it from a spiritual point of view, then you get a different spin on it altogether, and you realize. Well, Albert, thank you so much indeed for your talk today. I'm very pleased that you came on the program, and I know our listeners will be interested in what you said. So until next time, everybody, to Albert Bramanti, and all my visitors on Spiritual Infinity, thank you very much, and bye for now.